Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, I just wanted to give you guys a quick reminder that I have a giveaway running on my Twitter account right now. If you are subscribed, you're halfway into entering. I've linked the Twitter posting down below with all the rules and regulations, but 2 people will be winning a book each, up to $20 from the book depository as long as it ships to you. And yeah, go enter. I hope you win. Not that many people have entered so far, so you have a pretty decent chance of winning. Hope you win. Good luck, and let's just get on with the video. Today's video is honestly just really for me, which you would think would defeat the purpose of making the video because I make videos like for people to watch them and to get something from them. Well, I hope you get something from this, but it's mostly for me to kind of inspire me to read these books. As you've seen from the title, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 fantasy books and fantasy series that are like the highest up on my TBR. I think about them a lot. I think about reading them a lot, but then I just don't do it. That's for a variety of reasons, honestly. For some of them, it's because they're pretty much a big dedication and I just don't have the mental energy to commit to that yet. For others, it's because I've committed to reading a lot of buddy reads with people or participating in different readathons or reading NetGalley books, and I literally just haven't had time to prioritize them, but I would love to. And I always am thinking about which ones are the highest up on my list, and I figured I'd make a video. Now I can just reference this video whenever I'm confused about what fantasy series I should start. Most of these are pretty intense fantasy. I don't think I have a YA fantasy on here. We'll see, but for the most part, I think most of them are adult fantasy, pretty intense, extensive, lengthy fantasy books, which again is why I haven't started them. But let's just get started. Another thing I'll say that you're gonna notice that's very random and weird that I did here, and I don't know why I did it. You could say, Maria, hey, I thought you made this video, so you can, I don't know why I did this. I don't know why. For some of the series, pulled the whole series off my shelves, and for some of them, I only picked the first book. I don't know why. I have the full series for every single one of these. So it's not because I didn't have them. I just, for some reason, for some of them, chose not to show all of them. I genuinely don't know why. We're just gonna go with it. We're gonna go with Maria from 10 minutes ago who pulled all these off her shelves. And we're just gonna get started because the chaos is about to ensue. The first book series that I have to show you is the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. So I only pulled the first book for this one, but that's mostly because there are multiple trilogies within this overarching world that Robin Hobb has created, and this is the first in the Farseer Trilogy, which is the first trilogy you're supposed to read, and I've just been eyeing these ever since I got them. Reagan from Prue's Project raves about Robin Hobb. Reagan from Prue's Project raves about Robin Hobb. Such an anticipated author for me. I feel like I'm going to love her books, and I really don't know much about what these books are about. I know that there's some classic quest fantasy books, and that despite knowing some of the characters, I really don't know much about what this book is really about, and I'm really excited to start. I know they get thicker as you go on. This is the shortest one, I'm pretty sure, from the entire world. Like I said, there are like 16 books or something, so I need to tackle this one and get started, and they're beautiful, but I haven't had time. Next is a series that I really had not heard much about until this year, but once I heard about it, I knew I had to pick it up, so I got the first 3 books, and the first is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This series is called the Books of Babel, and it's essentially about this guy who is going on his honeymoon with his wife, and they've always wanted to go to the Tower of Babel, which is this really crazy place. All sorts of stuff is going on. It's really easy to get lost there, and he does lose his wife there. So the rest of this book is him going on a quest to find her and, bring her back to him because he's lost his wife. And I've heard really amazing things about the relationship that he has with his wife and how sweet it is, and how you're getting flashbacks to when they were falling in love and first getting together, and you're really rooting for the relationship, and you're also learning a lot about this place, and it's supposed to be really cool. I also have The Arm of the Sphinx, which is book 2, and The Hod King, which these covers are amazing. I think that's one of my favorite things about fantasy books. The covers are so beautiful. Look at them. Look at them. Having these on my shelves is amazing. But yeah, it sounds like a really fun quest-based fantasy that I just will love. Like, I love a quest-based fantasy, and I really haven't read one in a very long time. I've been reading a lot of books that are not typical genre books to read for me. Like, I don't usually read a lot of historical fiction. I don't usually read a lot of contemporary or romance in general, but I've really been reading a lot of that lately, a lot of memoirs, a lot of stuff, like I said, that's just not in my typical genre range, which is great. And I love trying to push myself out of my comfort zone, but also I have been neglecting fantasy, so I really want to pick these up some point soon. Next is a book that I've talked about a bit on my channel recently, especially in the most intimidating books on my TBR, and that is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I have this beautiful, like, 10th anniversary edition, I think it is. It's just gorgeous. It has red pages. The inside is just beautiful, and I love it, but I haven't read this yet, and I know that I'll like it. The main reason I haven't picked this up, which I've said before, is that we don't know when the third book is coming out, and I don't know if I really want to commit to that if I'm never gonna know what happens, but also I've heard such amazing things about the first two books, so I feel like I should just go for it and try it anyway, and if the third book never comes out, we can all just cry together. But yeah, it's a thick book, but I think I will like it, and I would like to read it soon. Next, I have Jade City by Fonda Lee. I also have Jade War, which is book 2, and I have book 3 pre-ordered. I think it's Jade Legacy, and I have just heard amazing things about this. I know that this is a really gritty fantasy story, a lot of politics. There's mafias that are like selling jade, and it's about this family that sells jade, and the jade gives people powers. That's how people get their powers. So like jade is really coveted, and there's a lot going on, and you really like the side characters. So it sounds really up my alley. I just haven't picked it up yet, but I can't decide if I just want to read all 3 when they come out. I mean, I don't think it's a trilogy. It might be, but I'm not sure. Even if it's a series, I kind of want to just wait until the third book comes out and just binge read all of them, but I haven't decided yet. But the covers are beautiful. I'm a sucker for a good fantasy cover, and I've been hearing so much hype about it that I really, really want to pick it up. As you can see, a lot of the books on this list are very hyped up books. It's not a lot of just obscure things, but I think they're hyped for a reason, so I gotta check it out. The next one is also a big hyped book, and that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I love R.F. Kuang. I follow her on Twitter, and she's amazing. I'm so excited for the book that's coming out next year. I'll leave a link to the summary of the book in the the description box below, but you have to read it because it sounds amazing. It sounds so unique and so interesting, and I cannot wait for it to come out. But first, I need to read the Poppy War trilogy. I have all 3 books. I've been meaning to read it for a while. I actually think I'll be reading this next month because I told my housemate we need to buddy read it and that she can't let me change my mind and pick a different book, and I have to read this, so I can't wait. This is supposed to be really gory, really addresses the realities of war. It doesn't really sugarcoat over them or shy away from showing how terrible it can be and how gross and how devastating things can be. I know the main character goes through a character journey that might not end the best for her, you know. It's really, it shows how on both sides, it's not like there's a good guy and a bad guy. It's just everyone has to do unspeakable things to make it through and to win, and that's not the greatest. So I really want to read this. I feel like it's a lot of moral philosophy, a lot of battle strategy, a lot of historical elements that I'm going to be interested to read, so I can't wait to pick this up. Next, we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Off the top of my head, I don't know that much about this book, but number 1, the cover is beautiful. Number 2, I remember when I heard the summary, I immediately bought it. I also bought it for my friend because I thought he would really like it, so I just need to read this. It watches me from my shelves. Look at that. I mean, covers are getting so much better than they used to be. Cover art is an art. They really are very talented. But yeah, this is really high up on my list. And I wish I could give you a good reason other than I like the cover and I remember hearing the summary once and thinking it was good, but that's the explanation I got for you today. Next, we have The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and I have the first 4 books, and apparently it's going to be 6 books, 7 books, 8 books, I can't really remember, but I have been meaning to read this for forever. I have had this for so long, and I really, again, like Samantha Shannon on Twitter. I think she's a really cool person. I feel like when I like the author as a person, I am more inclined to want to read their books, and that's definitely something that happened here. I think there's magic and witchery involved, which is one of my favorite fantasy tropes, so I gotta read this, and it's just, these covers are also so beautiful. I have all 4. I have like a collector's edition of the 4th one, which has a black cover with a yellow spine, and it's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and I love having it on my shelf. I'm pretty sure it's also signed, so I gotta read them. They're so beloved. People are obsessed with these books, and I gotta check them out. Next, we have a trilogy that I think is a YA fantasy. I think this is one of the YA fantasies I have on here. And it has such a special place in my heart because I have technically read the first book, but it's been so long I really don't remember what happened, so I need to reread it. But I have a funny story I'll tell you after I show you what trilogy it is. And that is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. I have the first book. I also have Days of Blood and Starlight, which is book 2. And I have Dreams of Gods and Monsters, which is book 3. I think I read this freshman year of high school, and I was obsessed to the point that I found Laini Taylor on Facebook and sent her a message gushing about how much I loved her book, because at the time I didn't have Twitter. I didn't really know that you could get an author email. It was harder to contact your favorite authors, in my opinion, back in the day, back in 2012 when I was a freshman in high school, and I was just obsessed, and the next 2 books weren't out yet. And then by the time they came out, I forgot what happened in the first book. I forgot why I loved it so much. So I want to reread it. I want to remember why I loved it so much and keep going and finish the trilogy. So this is super high up on my list. I have a collector's edition coming of a box set of Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, which is her other, I think it's a duology. I'm not 100% sure, but I just really want to read this. I really want to pick it up. I want to finish what 14-year-old Maria started. I also hope that Laini Taylor doesn't think I'm a creep for finding her on Facebook and sending her a gushing message about her books. I hope she saw it as flattery, but honestly, you never know. She could really think that I'm a creep and sketchy, and for that, I'm sorry. For that, I'm sending my apology. This is my notes apology that should have been on Twitter. Please don't cancel me. Next, this should be really no surprise, but I have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. These are my editions. I have the ones that have part 1 and part 2 within them. And so this is part 1 of The Way of Kings, and this is part 2 of The Way of Kings. And I just like them like this because it kind of splits them up, so it's a little less stressful for me to read. I'll still only count it as having read 1 book, just because they're 2 separately bound editions doesn't mean it's 2 books, but I do think that this is just easier to hold. I love the way they look on my shelves. I'm obsessed with these. But I also want to read The Final Empire, just anything by Brandon Sanderson. I read The Final Empire back in the day, and I loved it, but I would like to get a refresher. I do remember a lot of what happens, but I want a little bit of a refresher before continuing on with the Mistborn series. But I really want to start this one. I've heard such good things about it, and I have all 4 of the first books. I think book 5, I think there's a book 5. One day. It's not out yet, but one day there will be a book 5. So I'd like to catch up in the series before that comes out, and I just feel like Brandon Sanderson is such a cult classic in terms of fantasy that I just really want to pick up his books. So I have only read 1, which is kind of sad. I have so many of his books, but gotta get on these ones. The last fantasy series I really want to start and read is one that I very recently became aware of because people are picking it up and loving it. They're just obsessed, and I'm jealous, and I want to read them, so I bought them. The first is Upon a Burning Throne by Ashok K. Bunker, and I have been seeing people rave about this, and then they've been raving about how the sequel, A Dark Queen Rises, is so good too, and it's just as good as the first, if not better, which just makes me want to read it more because oftentimes the second book is not that good. Usually there's second book curse where the first book is really good, then you read the second book and you're like, oh no. And then usually the third book, fourth books, they redeem themselves. The author has got their stride, but apparently this man's really killing it and just writing banger after banger. And I gotta read it. I gotta read it. The sides are so cool. The covers are beautiful. Again, I'm a sucker for a good cover, and you cannot tell me that these are not gorgeous. You can't tell me it because it's not true. So those are the fantasy books that are the highest up on my TBR, my top 10. Let me know which ones of these I should get to first, because I definitely need some motivation. If anyone wants to buddy read anything with me, also let me know. I'd be very down to do that. Let me know what fantasy books are really high up on your TBR. Are there any I should add to my TBR? Any that you're like, no, you didn't include this and you need to read it? Let me know. I'm always looking for recommendations. It's not like my TBR isn't insanely long at the moment anyway. I need to add more books to it. It's fine. The more the merrier, honestly. I just want to read everything all the time, every day. As always, my links are down below, like my Facebook page, my Instagram, my Twitter, my Goodreads, all that fun stuff. I also always include links to relevant things happening around the world, donation platforms and petitions and that kind of thing. So we have things for Palestine in there, Black Lives Matter, AAPI, COVID crisis in India, etc. Let me know if there are any links you think I should add. Obviously, it's really hard for me to put a comprehensive list because there are so many things happening in the world, but I definitely will add stuff if made aware. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. This was a really fun video to make and film, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!